Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
WorryFree Productions presents Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, presented by America's favorite financial sidekick, Aaron Orender.
Why stand we here idle? What is that gentleman wish?
Hey, get to the death line.
What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God.
Boo, you stink!
Really? I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or
Your money.
What that guy said.
Oh my gosh, forget it. Ugh.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, best-selling author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
His name, Patrick Henry. Born in 1736, Henry was a major figure of the American Revolution and still considered to this day one of the country's greatest statesmen. As the first governor of Virginia, he is perhaps best known for these powerful words delivered on the floor of the Virginia Convention, "Give me liberty or give me death." So why did Patrick Henry feel so compelled to say such a brash statement? Probably because at the time, he and his fellow colonists were sick and tired of all the taxes that came along with living under the thumb of England. What these colonists really wanted was their independence, to be more in control and to control their own destiny, and certainly to be free to enjoy the fruits of their labor as they saw fit. Not an easy task back then, and as you've probably noticed with your own money today, it's not easy as well today. Yet, in meeting and working with over 15,000 savers over the past 37 years, here's what I've discovered deep down. We all want the same thing that Patrick Henry wanted: to be free and to feel like we are independent from others and in more control of our money, which means our future. Which, when you boil it all down, is really the goal of what we call retirement planning. A retirement plan is really quite simple. First, the plan should allow one to see what one has worked with, and as a result of a written plan, then provide the saver a feeling of being in more control over where they are going and how best to use and enjoy this money before it's too late. But there's a problem with achieving this feeling of being financially independent, and it is so fundamental as to why so many people worry about money, and this has less to do about where you invest your money, but more to do with when you need to spend it, which, of course, is the topic of today's program. Well, welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we share the 3 keys of money, let me introduce to you America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, there you are, wondering what a guy belly-aching some 300 years ago about the need for independence has to do with you and your money, to which I would say, hold on to your wallet and I'll show you. Because here's the problem, folks, with all of the uncertainty over our economy and the stock market, with banks paying next to nothing in interest on our money, and our nation's debt going through the roof, can anyone say inflation? Well, in my view, the reason so many of you are so worried about your futures is because you don't have the proper perspective about what this money is for and how best to use and enjoy it before it's too late. So as we learned today, there are only 3 things that you can do with this money you've worked so hard to create. And in the end, one of those isn't good. So you stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. You're watching the WorryFree Retirement. Warning: A licensed insurance agent with no prior knowledge of annuities can legally toss your 401k into an annuity. Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement at our Worry-Free production studios in Louisville, Kentucky. We spare no expense, folks, to bring you top quality production. In fact, right above me here is a brand new boom mic. I don't want to tell you what we paid for this boom mic and directional mic setup, but it's a doozy. However, I feel really bad because when Derek Hudson and Aaron Orander were putting this thing together, apparently there was a slight accident when they were putting it together. Derek, how you doing over there, partner?
Huh? Yeah, I'm okay, Mom. I can go to school today.
All right, Derek, hope you get to feeling better. Anyway, back to our program. I got a TNT. This is a good one. It says, Tony, I recently read Live Well, Die Broke, and I'm confused. You talk about giving more money to your kids and grandkids rather than later, but how do I do that and be sure that I don't run out of money? This comes from Rob in Louisville. Well, Rob, that's a really good question and one that we deal with a lot because we're such big proponents of thinking about using and enjoying this money now versus later. Well, the way we track this, the way we work with our clients to help them make these crucial decisions of when to use and enjoy now versus later is through our proprietary split IRA concept. And folks, when I created this several years ago, this works so well. So I want to take a minute to make sure you understand because a lot of people come into us. Let me give you an example. Had somebody just the other day, they're getting ready to retire. They want to roll their 401k over. Well, they don't know what to do with that 401k, how to manage it. Of course, everybody and his brother's licking their chops to get after it. But what is the strategy? How are you going to use it? How are you going to keep the taxes down? How are you going to keep some of this money liquid so you can get access to it when you want? And then finally, how are you going to keep from running out of money? So what we do is, whether it's a savings account, investments, 401k, pension, it doesn't matter, we'll split it up into these two buckets. Now, the first bucket is where, in most cases, we put what I call your investments. This would be like the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, same stuff you had in your 401k. We place that with Charles Schwab. Now, Charles Schwab is basically a custodian, okay? We are putting the money with Schwab so we can use their features and their products. That way, we have flexibility. We can get the money out when we want. There's generally very, very low fees. In fact, for that Schwab bucket to do everything, we only charge 0.8% per year, well below most of the other guys out there who are managing money. The second place we generally put money, not always, but sometimes, is in what we call fixed annuities. In many cases, those fixed annuities are either accumulation or income products. We've talked about this on the show before. If we have an income product, that's where we provide our mailbox money. So Rob, if you move money over to us, you know that at some point when you kick in that mailbox money, when we start sending you that check, you're going to get a check guaranteed for the rest of your life. I hope that helps. All right, speaking of a lot of money and giving away money now versus later, we featured on our show a while back this gentleman. His name is Chuck Feeney, who decided some recent days ago to go ahead and finalize and give away everything he had before he died. Now, old Chuck was a billionaire. I mean, worth billions. And what he realized is the same thing I realized over the years, that you can't spend it all and you really don't need to have that much money in the end. So he decided to give all of his billions away and keep back a cool $2 million to live out the remaining years of his life. Why? Because Chuck realized something I've been preaching for years, more than 20 years, and stated in one of my first books, that was perfecting your walk in retirement. Now, barring some sort of medical calamity, what I've noticed over the years is you're going to spend less and less as you get older. But since I'm assuming most of you watching this show aren't billionaires, you may be nervous about giving money away right now. Yet, even though you don't have the money Chuck does, you and I do have one thing in common with him. No matter how much we have, in the end, we all, listen carefully, we all must give 100% of what we have away. So let's talk about the principle I created called the 3 uses of money and how this works. And I want to go through this graphic to give you a different perspective of how the Worry-Free Retirement and Live Well, Die Broke team up to provide you a way to know when to give money away and when to keep it. So basically, there's only 3 things that can happen to money. Now think about this. When you get money, whether it's given to you, earned, it doesn't matter, the first thing you can do is you can save it. And of course, when you're working, when you're young, we encourage people, you have to save money. But when you think about saving money, if you're really thinking about what this dollar bill is really used for, the whole purpose of saving, some of you savers forget this, is to one day spend it. I mean, think about this. I run into people all the time who have several hundred thousands, if not sometimes millions of dollars stockpiled in 401ks and pensions and bank accounts. And they're getting up into their 70s and 80s. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, what do you mean what I'm doing? I'm saving money. Why are you saving it? And many people can't tell you what they're doing. They just out of habit saved money. Folks, if you don't spend this money before you die, it's too late. So you have another option. You can save it, spend it, or you can give it. Now, you might say, well, who do I give it to? Well, there's all kinds of people you can give it to while you're alive. You can give it to your children, your grandchildren, your church, your favorite charities, your employees. You can give it to anybody you want to. But there's a problem. There's also other people out there that you might have to give it to that you don't want to have it. Well, who might that be? Well, it could be people like us that have to charge fees, money managers. You might have to give it to the government. That's called taxes. You might give it to all the banks paying for all these loans. That's called interest. And of course, you might have to give it to the people in long-term care, nursing homes, and whatnot. Not a fun thought. But here's the point. Eventually, you can only save so much and spend so much, but in the end, let me tell you something with this give it deal, in the end, 100% of it is going to have to be given away. So folks, you might be sitting there saying, Tony, I've really never thought about it this way. The problem is I seem to be so focused on making rates of return and saving money and trying to provide for my family. I haven't really thought about this concept that somebody's going to get my money in the end. And if I don't give it away now, I might have to give it to somebody I may not want to have it in the future. So when I come back, I'm going to diagnose two different cases. A young couple that's in their 60s who just retired, and then I'm going to fast forward to somebody who's on up in their 70s, a widow, and we're going to talk about how we give money, how we have our cake and eat it too, but more importantly, how most of that money hopefully goes to people we want to have it, not those we don't. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back. It is estimated that each day over 10,000 people will turn 65, which means a lot of advisors selling a lot of annuities. Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Among the many books I've authored over the years, my latest book, Live Well, Die Broke, relates not only to my past feelings and experiences of money, but more importantly, my collective thoughts about what to do with money moving forward. Its purpose is not to be a how-to book on money, but rather a why-to book about it. Live Well, Die Broke is a realistic wake-up call to remind savers to spend and enjoy this money before it's too late, and to remind them that you and I only have three choices with this money. Let's take a look at this again. So again, with money, we can either save it, we can spend it, or we can give it. Now, what happens over time if we buy into this notion that savings is really meant to be spent? Over time, you should be saving less and spending more. This should make sense to you. You save money. You have hundreds of thousands of dollars maybe in your 401k. Again, if you don't use it and die with it, what's the point? So we want to spend it. But then, as you get older and you move usually through the stages of life we call the second half of life, again, barring some sort of medical catastrophe, you know what happens? People spend less, and then we begin to give it. And then finally, unfortunately, we all die, and we're going to have to give it to somebody. Hopefully it's the right people, though, our children, nieces, nephews, family. We'd like to give the least amount we can to the government and everybody else that's out there after it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the whiteboard. I'm going to explain two situations to work with. So let's say you're in your 60s and retired. What is it you can do to take more control over your money and possibly give more of it to your family now and less to the government? And then we're going to fast forward to someone, a widow in her late 70s who's got the same issue. How much money do you really need to live on, and how much can you give away now and still maintain control of your retirement? Let's take a look at that right now. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a 65-year-old couple who is looking to give it away in one example, and then in a minute we're going to look at a 78-year-old widow who's wanting to give it away in a different manner. Now in this example, they have a 401k worth about $500,000. Now this couple happens to be debt-free, which is one more reason a lot of my saver clients like to pay off their homes in retirement. So they already are drawing Social Security, he's drawing a small pension, and they got some savings. So really, they don't really need a lot of income, folks. By the time you get into Medicare age for health insurance, you don't have any debt, assuming you live a pretty low-key lifestyle, they're not really using much of this 401k. So when we talked and I reminded them that taxes could go up in the future and that a lot of this money is not yours but the government, in other words, you're going to give it to them eventually, we had this discussion. So I said, look, there's only two different people you can give this to. Either you give it to your kids on a favorable tax basis, or you wait to see what happens and the IRS is going to take it anyway. So in this example, again, this is just example, they know their adult children are needing things, maybe wanting to buy a house, need a car, whatever. What we do in our office, and Leanne Tinsley is great at this for our clients, we will judge the tax ramifications of taking money out now, paying the tax, which we're in a very low tax rate right now in our country, and giving it away. So we might take, just an example, $50,000 over the next 4 years before they raise the taxes for sure, or at least until the laws expire in 2026, and we're going to literally give that $50,000 over to the children now. And you say, well, wait a minute, Tony, isn't that going to be taxed? Yes, it'll be taxed. And let's just imagine it's taxed at 20%. So that's right, each year you're going to have to give the government out of that $10,000 per year, right? But you got to remember, if you don't give the money to the kids now and hang on to it and leave it to them later on or when you die, the tax rates could be through the roof. And the amount of money the government could take, or that, quote, your kids are going to have to give them, could be enormous. This way, from a planning standpoint, we've already given it to them. This is a tax-free gift to them, net of what you had to pay the government, and now the kids are free to do with it whatever they want. Such a great situation, and one that we can help you think through. So that's you, if you're in a retirement or age or retiring soon and you'd like to give money to people now and you want to deal with these darn taxes, what I like to call the tax tumor, the way we do this, in the way we lay it out, again, is through our split IRA concept. So the split IRA concept allows us to have the flexibility to do things such as this, and if you want to, we can put that beloved mailbox money on the back end so that before you give everything away, you'll have that guaranteed income that you can never outlive. So there you go. There's an example of a 65-year-old in the way a planning firm like Tony Walker Financial will take an approach to allow you to enjoy this money and keep more of it for you and your family. Now, we're going to take a look at a 70-year-old widow, not really a similar situation, but is worried about giving up all their money to the government as well. So let's take a look at that. All right, now we take a look at a 78-year-old widow, totally different circumstances in terms of her stage in life, family, etc., but we got kind of the same problem. She wants to give money away to her family and not necessarily give it all to the government. So here's the dilemma. Currently, believe it or not, she's living on Social Security and making it just fine. Occasionally, she'll draw from her savings, which she has about $300,000 in after-tax money in the local bank, which is fine, whatever she wants to do, but she's drawing on that as she needs it. But then, therein lies the problem. She's got this big IRA that's never been taxed, worth about $300,000. She doesn't need it, and she doesn't want to pay the taxes. And worse yet, when I told her that your kids and grandkids are going to have to pay the taxes on it, also, by the way, they just changed the laws. Not only are they going to have to pay the taxes, when you left money, an IRA or 401k to kids in the past, they could stretch that tax over their lifetime. No more. They're going to have to pay the piper within 10 years. So this is a rotten deal indeed. So what are we going to do? She doesn't need the money. Taxes could go up in the future. She has to take out a required minimum distribution anyway. I mean, this thing is dogging her to death, and she really wants no more part of it. She doesn't even know what to do with it. Well, in comes a concept that many people are aware of but really don't understand, and it's a great giving tool. It's called a Roth conversion, all right? So I'm going to use an extreme example. I wouldn't do this, by the way, but what we could do in this example, since she doesn't need this money, for the next 3 years, what we will do is we'll take $100,000 out of this IRA and totally deplete it in 3 years. Again, we want this money gone before she passes away. So you say, wait a minute, Tony, $100,000, that's going to be a lot of taxes, isn't it, partner? Yeah. Again, we're back to that old IRS thing again, right? Let's put the kids back here. If a 20% bracket, we're just using an example, she's going to have to pay $20,000 to the IRS each year. But remember, folks, think about this. What was her objective? She wants this to go to the kids and grandkids. She wants it to go to them at the least amount of taxes. And when I told her, or asked her, I didn't tell her, I asked her what she thought would happen to tax rates in the future. Well, she said, well, honey, definitely they're going to have to go up, aren't they? So again, if she doesn't plan with this money accordingly, when, not if, when she dies, heck, they may tax it at 30 or 40% to her kids. It's, again, not a good planning tool at all. But you say, well, Tony, where's she going to get the money to pay the tax? Oh, this is even perfect, because now we can go to that bank account over here that's languishing around making next to nothing in interest. I call this throwing a bone to the IRS, and we'll take that $20,000 out of the bank every year, and we'll pay the government their fair share. But here's the beauty. These monies now become what's called a Roth IRA. No more minimum distributions, no more taxes. In fact, we could put this in a little more of an aggressive stance with our Charles Schwab platform, or we could put it in something that has a larger death benefit. All kinds of things we could do with this. That way when, not if, that way when she dies, I'm going to, I don't care what this has grown to. Maybe one day it's worth $500,000, okay? That money, this is the beauty, will go to the kids or grandkids or whoever she wants to leave it to, completely tax-free. So folks, if you're sitting there saying, gosh, nobody's doing any planning like this for me, Tony, all they want to do is hold on to my money and charge fees on it. Why don't people help me plan and use and enjoy this money? I can't speak for them, but I can speak for us at Tony Walker Financial. That's our mission, to help savers use and enjoy this money before it's too late. So if you don't have anybody like this that you can work with, that you trust, that knows what the heck they're doing, why don't you log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. We'll be happy to talk to you at no cost or obligation about your situation. Well, we've been talking a lot about freedom to use your money and independence. Did you realize that the greatest man that ever walked the earth came here so that we would be free? This is some good stuff coming up. I got to grab my Bible and a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. With the stock market at all-time highs and our nation's debt through the roof, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. Now may be the best time to safeguard more of your 401k. Let's get started today by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Last week we discussed the idea expressed by one of the richest men who ever lived, King Solomon. That is, it's impossible for any person to enjoy the fruits of your labor without God. In other words, even though you may have all the money in the world and as a result think you are free and independent to use and enjoy this money without inviting God to the party, basically in the end you're going to be stuck with a bunch of weeds. Today we mention the name of one of our country's greatest statesmen, Patrick Henry, and how he truly believed that liberty was so important that he'd rather die if he couldn't have it. I truly believe that deep down inside all of us is this same desire to be free, to be independent of others. Don't believe me? Just watch how people growing older, how they worry about being dependent on adult children for their long-term care. It's a frightening thought indeed. Well, why is this? Well, it's because those parents of yours don't want to feel dependent on others. They want to be free to choose what they do and where they live. But since we live in a fallen world, freedom, as we would like to think about it, one day will catch up with us. That's because there is no such thing. Why? Because fallen man is at the helm, and as long as he's in charge, you and I will never really truly be free. This is why some 2,000 years ago, a man claiming to be the Son of God came to earth. His name was Jesus Christ. Talking about a great statesman, this humble man on more than one occasion confounded the educated and the wise back then as he still does today. No greater mystery of this in many words spoken by Jesus in regards to freedom and man's desire for it can be found in Galatians 5:1, where the Apostle Paul says the following: "It was for freedom that Christ set us free." You see, prior to the arrival of Jesus, most folks were willing to be put under man's laws, both those laws coming from the government and those laws coming from the church. But when Jesus arrived on the scene, he abolished those laws and replaced them with his Spirit, a Spirit that provides us with freedom. Not freedom to disobey the laws, don't get me wrong, but freedom to live at peace with God. You see, therein lies the rub in this lifetime. We want our freedom, and we cry foul when we don't get it. We want to be independent, so we save all of our money. But in the end, one day we realize, whether we like it or not, we're going to have to give 100% of it all back. So what's the point, Tony, you ask? What does us having little control over our money have to do with Jesus setting us free? What does he setting us free from? He set us free from our flesh and replaced it with his Spirit. Why? So that we could enjoy the fruits of it. Take a look at Galatians 5:22 and what happens when we submit to God's Spirit. We have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, all of what Paul says, against such things, look, there is no law. So what does a man coming to earth some 2,000 years ago and dying on a cross for you and I have to do with our freedom and independence? You guessed it, everything. Well, how about you? Do you feel like you are financially dependent on others and working hard and enjoying less of what you got? Do you now realize for the first time that if you do not spend and enjoy this money now, one day you're going to have to give it all back? Well, if you don't have a game plan in place to use and enjoy this money now, why not? My name's Tony Walker, and for more than 37 years I've been helping savers use and enjoy more of their money, all without the fear of running out of it. And while I can't guarantee you won't have to give up your money to others, I can guarantee you that with a plan, we'll give you more of it to the people you want to get it. So if you're sitting there with a 401k plan, maybe a 401k at a previous employer, you're retired, you got a bunch of money languishing over there at the local bank, maybe you just received an inheritance, why don't we talk? There's absolutely no cost to visit with me, and you are under no obligation to do business with us. All you have to do to take advantage of this free offer to talk to me is log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And when you get there, just click on that Let's Get Started button. Your information will be sent confidentially to our offices, and then we will arrange either a phone call with myself, or if it warrants, I'll be happy to meet with you in either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. Do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. I've enjoyed being here with you, but you remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.